The alarms screamed through the orbital station like the cry of a dying animal. Red lights flashed against metal walls. Soldiers ran through narrow hallways, their boots hitting the floor in a thunder of footsteps. Commander Taiho stood at the main window of the defense station called Hwarang. He was 53 years old. His face carried scars from battles that most people only read about in history books. His left eye was artificial, lost during the Mars Rebellion 12 years ago. He had seen war. He had lived in war. He had buried friends and enemies in the same cold ground. But he had never seen anything like this. 17 ships appeared in the black sky above Earth. They came from nowhere, tearing through space itself like fingers pushing through paper. Each ship was massive. The smallest one was larger than any city on Earth. They blocked out the stars and cast shadows across the moon. "Get me a reading," Taiho said. His voice was calm. It was always calm. Panic was a luxury he could not afford. Captain Yuna worked at the console beside him. She was 31, with short black hair and eyes that seemed to look through people rather than at them. She had lost her mother, father, and 2 brothers during the lunar siege of 2139. That war had lasted 3 years. When it ended, Yuna had nothing left except her rage and her skill with weapons. 17 vessels, she reported. Unknown design, unknown origin. Energy readings are beyond anything in our database. She paused and looked up at him. They are not human. Taiho nodded slowly. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. For thousands of years, they had looked at the stars and asked questions. Now they had their answer. The answer was terrifying. A voice crackled through every speaker on the station, every radio on Earth, every device capable of receiving a signal. It spoke in perfect Korean, perfect English, perfect every language at once. The translation was flawless, but the voice behind it was cold and empty. People of this world, I am Lord Maven, Emperor of the Velic Empire. We have conquered 47 species across this galaxy. We have claimed 10,000 worlds. Your planet is now part of our empire. You will surrender all weapons. You will present your leaders for judgment. You will accept our rule. You have 12 hours. Resistance will be punished with death. This is not a request. The message ended. Silence filled the station. Yuna turned to Taiho. 12 hours. I heard. What do we do? Taiho watched the alien ships through the window. They hung in space like monuments to power. He thought about his daughter on Earth, about the billions of people looking up at the sky right now with fear in their hearts. He thought about everything humanity had survived. Ice ages that lasted thousands of years, plagues that killed millions, wars that burned entire continents, nuclear weapons that could have ended everything. They had survived it all. They had clawed their way out of the mud and reached for the stars. They had fought each other with sticks and stones, then swords, then guns, then bombs that split atoms. They had nearly destroyed themselves a dozen times, but they were still here. We fight, Taiho said. The United Defense Council met within the hour. Politicians argued. Generals shouted. Some wanted to surrender. Some wanted to negotiate. Some wanted to run. Taiho stood in the center of the room and waited for silence. I have studied war my entire life, he said. I have killed men with my hands. I have ordered soldiers to die for causes I was not sure were right. I have made mistakes that haunt me every night. He looked around the room at the frightened faces. But I know one thing with absolute certainty. If we surrender, we die. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. But an empire that conquers does not share power. They use us until we are broken, and then they throw us away. A politician raised his hand. Commander, they have conquered 47 species, entire civilizations. How can we possibly resist? Because those species had never faced anything like us. Taiho answered. They grew up in peaceful galaxies. They built their cultures without constant war. They never learned to fight the way we fight. He pointed at the window, at the stars beyond. We have been killing each other since the first human picked up a rock. We have 10,000 years of practice at war. It is the one thing we do better than anything else. The room was silent. I am not saying we will win, Tai-Ho continued. I am saying we will make them bleed. We will make them pay for every inch of our world. And maybe, if we fight hard enough and long enough, they will decide that Earth is not worth the cost. Captain Yuna stepped forward. I have already contacted resistance networks across the planet. Veterans from every conflict in the last 50 years are ready to fight. We have hidden weapons, supplies, and safe houses in every major city. If they want Earth, they will have to take it street by street, building by building, body by body. General Park, the oldest man in the room, stood up slowly. He was 80 years old. He had fought in 3 wars. His hands shook, but his voice was steady. I thought I would die in my bed, he said. I thought my fighting days were over. But if aliens are coming to take my world, then I will pick up a rifle one more time. He looked at Tai-Ho. Tell us what to do, Commander. Tai-Ho smiled for the first time that day. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a wolf that had spotted its prey. First, we evacuate the cities. Move everyone underground, into the tunnels and bunkers we built during the last wars. Second, we set traps. Every road, every bridge, every building becomes a weapon. Third, we study them, learn their weaknesses, find the gaps in their armor. He turned to face the window one last time. The alien ships glowed against the darkness of space. They gave us 12 hours to surrender. In 12 hours, they will learn what it means to invade Earth. They will learn why humans fear nothing. They will learn that we have been preparing for war our entire existence. His voice dropped to a whisper. They think they are the predators. They are wrong. Across the planet, soldiers loaded their weapons, civilians packed supplies, families said goodbye. The human race had faced extinction before, they had always survived, and they would survive again. The clock counted down. 12 hours became 11, 11 became 10, and somewhere in the darkness of space, Lord Maven watched the small blue planet with amusement. He had conquered 47 species. He expected this one to fall like all the others. He was about to learn how wrong he was. The Velic dropships fell from the sky like metal rain. They landed in Seoul, Beijing, Tokyo, and a dozen other cities at the same moment. The ground shook, buildings cracked, car alarms screamed into the empty streets. General Torak stepped off his ship and looked around at the human city. It was quiet, too quiet. Where were the crowds? Where were the screaming masses running in fear? Every other species had panicked when the Velic arrived. They had cried and begged and died in the streets. But here there was nothing. Empty roads, silent buildings, shadows without movement. Spread out, Torak ordered. Find them. His soldiers marched forward. They were magnificent creatures, each one standing 8 feet tall. Their bodies were covered in natural armor, thick plates of bone and muscle that could stop most weapons. Their guns fired bolts of energy that could turn a human to ash in less than a second. They had never lost a ground battle, not once in 300 years of conquest. Sergeant Minho watched them from beneath the street. He was hiding in an old subway tunnel with 11 other soldiers. The tunnel was dark and wet and smelled like rust. They had been waiting here for 6 hours, ever since the evacuation order came. Minho was 24 years old. He had joined the military at 18, fought in 2 civil conflicts, and killed his first enemy at 19. He still remembered the man's face. Beside him crouched Corporal Hana. She was the best sniper in their unit, maybe the best in the entire army. She was small and thin, with steady hands and eyes like a hawk. She had grown up in poverty, hunting birds with a homemade rifle just to feed her family. Now she hunted bigger prey. "How many?" Minho whispered. Hana looked through a crack in the street above them. 30 in the first group, more coming behind. Their armor? Thick everywhere except the neck. There is a gap where the head connects to the body. Small, but I can hit it. Minho nodded. Commander Taiho had sent them information about the Velic biology, gathered from the wreckage of a crashed scout ship. The neck gap was their best target. Everything else was almost impossible to penetrate. "Wait for my signal," Minho said. "Let them get deep into the kill zone." The Velic soldiers marched down the main street. Their footsteps echoed off the empty buildings. General Torak walked at the front, his confidence growing. These humans had run away. They were hiding like animals. This would be easy. He stepped over a metal plate in the road. The explosion lifted him off his feet and threw him 20 meters. Fire erupted from beneath the street. 3 Velic soldiers disappeared in the blast. 2 more fell, screaming, their armor cracked and burning. Torak hit the ground hard. His ears rang. Blood dripped from his face. Then the gunfire started. Minho burst out of the subway entrance, his rifle already firing. His squad followed behind him, spreading out and taking cover. They moved like water, flowing from position to position, never staying still long enough to be targeted. Hana stayed back. She found a window on the 3rd floor of a ruined building and set up her rifle. She breathed slowly. She aimed carefully. She squeezed the trigger. A Velic officer fell. A hole in his neck. She shifted targets. Another shot. Another dead officer. The Velic soldiers spun around, searching for the shooter. They fired their energy weapons at the buildings, blowing holes in concrete and steel. But Hana was already moving, running through the building to another window, another angle, another shot. General Torak pulled himself to his feet. His armor had saved his life, but he was hurt and confused. He tried to give orders, but his soldiers were scattered. They had never faced an ambush like this. Their battles were always simple. March forward, crush the enemy, accept surrender. Here, the enemy was everywhere and nowhere. They shot from rooftops and then vanished. They threw explosives from windows and then disappeared into the shadows. They fought like ghosts. Minho dropped behind a burned car as an energy bolt flew past his head. He popped up, fired 3 shots at a Velic soldier, and dropped again. The soldier stumbled but did not fall. The armor was too strong. "Aim for the neck," Minho shouted. "Only the neck." His squad adjusted. The Velic began to die faster. Across the city, similar battles raged. Human soldiers had turned Seoul into a maze of death. Every street was mined. Every building was a fortress. Every shadow hid a soldier. General Torak gathered the survivors of his unit and retreated to a small plaza. They formed a circle, weapons pointed outward. He counted heads. He had started with 300 soldiers in this section of the city. He now had 87. "This is impossible," one of his officers said. "We have conquered worlds with less resistance." "These creatures are different," Torak replied. He watched the buildings around them, searching for movement. "They do not fight like the others. They do not stand and face us. They strike and run. They use tricks and traps. They are cowards." "No." Torak shook his head slowly. "They are survivors. Look at their city. Look at their buildings. They have been destroyed before. They have rebuilt before. This is not their first war." A bullet cracked past his head. Another officer fell. Torak looked up and saw a small human woman standing on a rooftop 500 meters away. She was holding a rifle. She waved at him. Then she vanished. "Fall back," Torak ordered. "Fall back to the ships." The retreat was a nightmare. Every step brought new attacks, explosives buried in the ground, snipers in the windows, soldiers appearing from underground tunnels, firing a few shots, and then disappearing again. By the time Torak reached his dropship, he had lost 2/3 of his force. He sent a message to Lord Maven aboard the throne ship. "My Emperor, we have encountered unexpected resistance. The humans are not like the other species. They have prepared for war. They have hidden weapons and soldiers throughout their cities. They fight without honor, using traps and ambushes. Lord Mavan's reply was cold. You have superior technology, superior numbers, superior soldiers. Take the city. My emperor, I have lost over 200 soldiers in 4 hours. Taking this city could cost thousands. There was silence for a long moment. Then burn it, Lord Mavan said. Burn it to the ground. Torak looked at the human city. Smoke rose from a dozen fires. Somewhere in the darkness, human soldiers were reloading their weapons, treating their wounded, preparing for the next attack. He thought about his own soldiers, lying dead in the streets with holes in their necks. For the first time in his military career, General Torak felt afraid. Not of dying. He had faced death many times. He was afraid because he realized something terrible. These humans would never stop fighting. He could kill millions of them, and the rest would keep coming. They had been fighting each other for thousands of years. War was not just something they did, it was what they were. Torak gave the order to retreat. They would regroup, they would find another strategy, they would bring more soldiers and bigger weapons. But deep in his heart, he knew the truth. This war had just begun, and it would be nothing like any war the Velek had ever fought before. 6 months had passed since the invasion began. The Velek controlled small pieces of land scattered across the planet, but each piece had cost them dearly. Their graveyards grew larger every day. Their soldiers whispered about the human demons who could not be defeated. Deep beneath the city of Busan, in a laboratory hidden under 300 meters of rock, Dr. Yunji studied the body of a dead Velek soldier. She was 40 years old, a scientist who had spent her life studying alien signals from distant stars. She had dreamed of meeting beings from another world. Now that dream had become a nightmare, and she had changed from a researcher into a weapon designer. "Look at this," she said to her assistant. She pointed at a section of the Velek's inner ear. "Their hearing is very different from ours. They can detect sounds we cannot hear, but there are frequencies they cannot filter out." Her assistant leaned closer. "What does that mean?" Yunji smiled. It was not a kind smile. "It means we can build weapons that will make their heads explode while we hear nothing at all." Within 2 weeks, the first sonic grenades were tested. The results were beautiful and terrible. A single grenade could disable every Velek soldier within 50 meters. They would collapse, screaming, their hands pressed against their ears, unable to think or fight or do anything except suffer. The weapons were sent to every resistance cell on the planet. Meanwhile, in orbit above Earth, Admiral Sung-ho prepared for battle. He was 62 years old and had spent his entire adult life in space. He had commanded cargo ships, then patrol vessels, then warships. He had fought pirates near Jupiter and rebels near Mars. He knew space combat better than anyone alive. His fleet consisted of 4 destroyers, just 4. The Velek had 17 massive warships that could crush his entire force without effort. But Sung-ho was not planning to fight fair. "The Velek fight in straight lines," he told his captains during the briefing. "They move forward. They shoot. They expect the enemy to do the same. They have never faced anyone who does not follow these rules." Captain Yuna, who had transferred from Hwarang Station to Seung-ho's flagship, leaned forward. "So we don't follow the rules?" "Exactly." Seung-ho pulled up a holographic map of the space around Earth. "Their supply ships come through here, near the moon. 17 escort vessels, but they are slow and stupid. They do not expect anyone to attack them because no one ever has." "We attack the supply ships," Yuna said. "Cut off their food and fuel." "Not just attack. We appear, fire everything we have, and disappear before they can respond. We hit them from directions they do not expect. We make them afraid to move." The raid happened 3 days later. Seong-ho's 4 destroyers emerged from behind the moon at maximum speed. The Velik supply convoy was spread out, unprotected. The escort ships were far away, not expecting any threat. The destroyers fired missiles, torpedoes, and every gun they had. Then they changed direction and ran. 4 supply ships exploded. 2 more were badly damaged. By the time the Velik escorts arrived, Seong-ho's fleet was gone, hidden in the asteroid field near Mars. Lord Marvin received the news in his throne room. Another failure, another defeat by these impossible humans. "Find them," he ordered. "Destroy them." His admirals tried. They sent hunting parties into the asteroid field. Seong-ho's destroyers appeared from the rocks, fired, and vanished again. It was like fighting smoke. On Earth, the resistance grew stronger every day. People who had once been enemies now fought side by side. Lieutenant Ha-jun led a battalion in the mountains of the north. 3 years ago, he had been a political prisoner, locked in a cell for speaking against the government. His guards had beaten him. His family had been watched and threatened. Now his second-in-command was Sergeant Dong-hyuk, one of the men who had once guarded his cell. "Strange, isn't it?" Ha-jun said one night as they sat around a small fire. "You used to keep me locked up. Now we share food." Dong-hyuk nodded slowly. He was a large man with sad eyes. "I followed orders. I told myself I was doing my duty. I did not think about whether the orders were right or wrong." "Do you think about it now?" "Every day." Dong-hyuk looked at the stars above them. "When the aliens came, I realized how small our differences were. We are all human. That is the only thing that matters now." Stories like this happened everywhere. Old hatreds were forgotten. Old wars were forgiven. The invasion had united humanity in a way that nothing else could have. General Torak watched the reports from his command ship with growing despair. Every week his forces grew weaker while the human resistance grew stronger. They were learning to use Velik technology. They were building new weapons. They were organizing into a real army. He sent a message to Lord Maven. "My Emperor, I recommend we negotiate. The cost of conquering this planet is too high. For every human we kill, 2 more take their place. They have been fighting wars for 10,000 years. We cannot match their experience." Lord Maven's response was immediate. "There will be no negotiation. The Velik do not surrender. The Velik do not compromise. Increase the bombardment. Destroy their cities. Break their will." "With respect, my Emperor, we have been bombing their cities for 6 months. It does not break them. It only makes them angrier." "Then make them extinct." Torak closed the communication with a heavy heart. He had served the Empire his entire life. He had conquered worlds without question. But this war felt different. These humans were not like other species. They had something inside them, something hard and sharp, that refused to die. In the Resistance headquarters beneath Seoul, Commander Taiho received word of the increased bombardment. More cities would burn. More people would die. "We need to end this war," he said to his officers. "Not just survive it. Win it." Yuna, recently returned from the space raids, stepped forward. "There is only one way to do that. We kill Lord Maven." "He is on the throne ship," Taiho said. "The most protected vessel in their fleet. No weapon we have can touch it." "Then we don't use weapons." Yuna's eyes gleamed with cold fire. "We use people. We send a team inside and kill him with our hands." The room went silent. "That is suicide," someone said. "Maybe." Yuna looked around at the faces of her fellow soldiers. "But we are human. We have been throwing ourselves at impossible odds since the beginning of time. Sometimes suicide is the only path to victory." Taiho considered her words. He thought about all the soldiers who had died in this war. He thought about all the soldiers who would die if it continued. "Find volunteers," he said finally. "Find the craziest, bravest, most stubborn people you can, and find a way to get them onto that ship." Una smiled. The hunt for Lord Maven had begun. The weapon fired from orbit. A single beam of purple light fell from the sky and touched the center of Tokyo. For 1 second, nothing happened. Then the city vanished. 20 million people died in the time it takes to blink. Buildings, streets, parks, hospitals, schools, everything was gone. Where Tokyo had stood for hundreds of years, there was now only a crater of black glass. The news spread across the planet in minutes. People stared at their screens in horror. Some screamed, some cried, some simply sat in silence, unable to understand what they had seen. Lord Maven broadcast his message to Earth. "This is your punishment for resistance. Surrender now, or we will destroy another city, and another, until nothing remains." In the underground headquarters beneath Seoul, Commander Taiho watched the footage of Tokyo's destruction. His face showed no emotion, but his hands were shaking. 20 million, he whispered. 20 million people. Around him, officers and soldiers sat in stunned silence. Some wept openly. Others stared at nothing, their eyes empty. Captain Una stood near the door, watching them. She had not cried. She had forgotten how to cry years ago, after the lunar siege took everyone she loved, but she felt something burning in her chest, something hot and dark. "What do we do now?" someone asked. "They will destroy us all." "We surrender," another voice said. "We have to. We cannot fight this." "No." Everyone turned to look at General Sujin. She was 58 years old, the highest-ranking military officer still alive after 8 months of war. She had lost her husband in the early battles. She had lost her son a month later. She had lost friends, colleagues, and thousands of soldiers under her command. But she was still standing. "No," she said again, louder this time. "We do not surrender. Not now. Not ever." "They just killed 20 million people," someone shouted. "How can we fight against that?" Sujin walked to the center of the room. Her voice was calm and steady. "Let me tell you about humans. 70,000 years ago, we almost went extinct. A volcano erupted and covered the sky with ash. The world froze. We were reduced to perhaps 10,000 individuals, scattered and starving. We should have died, but we did not." She looked around the room, meeting every pair of eyes. 500 years ago, a plague killed half of Europe. Entire cities became graveyards. We should have collapsed, but we did not. 80 years ago, we built weapons that could destroy our entire planet. We pointed them at each other. We came within minutes of ending everything, but we did not. She paused. We have faced extinction before. We have stared into the darkness and refused to fall. This is no different. They can kill millions of us. They can burn our cities, but they cannot break us, because we are human, and humans do not break. She turned to the communication officer. "Open a channel, every frequency, every language. I want the whole planet to hear this." The channel opened. Sujin took a breath and spoke. "People of Earth, they have destroyed Tokyo. They think this will make us surrender. They are wrong. We have survived ice ages. We have survived plagues that killed half our people. We have survived weapons we built to destroy ourselves. These aliens are powerful, but they do not understand us. They do not know that every time someone tries to break us, we come back stronger. They do not know that we have been preparing for war since the first human picked up a stone. They do not know that we never, ever give up." Her voice grew harder. "So here is my message to Lord Maven. You can burn our cities. You can kill millions. But you cannot kill us all. And as long as one human remains alive, we will fight. We will hunt you. We will find you. And we will make you pay for every single life you have taken." The broadcast ended. Across the planet, people who had been ready to surrender felt something change inside them. Fear became anger. Despair became determination. They picked up their weapons and prepared to continue the fight. 3 days later, Operation Phoenix launched. Captain Jiho was a test pilot who had spent his career flying experimental spacecraft. He was 35 years old, thin and quiet, with a reputation for doing impossible things. He had once flown a damaged ship through an asteroid field with no navigation computer. He had once landed a transport vessel with all 4 engines on fire. He was not afraid of death because he had already escaped it so many times. His team consisted of 12 volunteers. Each one knew they would probably not survive. None of them cared. Engineer Bora was the youngest at 26. She had spent the last 6 months studying captured Velic technology. She understood their systems better than anyone alive. "Their shields are almost perfect," she explained during the briefing. "But there is a flaw. When their main cannon fires, there is a gap in the shield harmonics. It lasts 0.3 seconds. 0.3 seconds, Jiho repeated. "That is our window." "Yes, if we time it exactly right, we can get missiles through the gap and hit the throne ship's reactor core." "And if we miss?" Bora shrugged. "We die." Jiho smiled. "Then we do not miss." The mission launched at midnight. 12 people in 3 small spacecraft, modified civilian vessels that the Velic would not recognize as military threats. They flew toward the throne ship, hiding among the debris of destroyed satellites. Lord Maven's vessel was enormous, a floating palace of metal and light. It hung in orbit above Earth like a second moon, surrounded by escort ships and defense platforms. Jiho's heart beat steady and slow. He had trained his whole life for moments like this. "Everyone ready?" he asked through the communication system. 11 voices answered yes. "Then let us make history." They moved closer, slipping between patrol ships, using asteroids and wreckage as cover. Bora watched the throne ship's main cannon, waiting for it to fire. "Almost," she whispered. "Almost." The cannon began to glow with purple energy. It was charging for another attack on Earth. Another city was about to die. "Now!" Bora shouted. All 3 spacecraft launched their missiles at the same instant. The cannon fired. The shields flickered. For 0.3 seconds, the throne ship was vulnerable. The missiles flew through the gap. 1 was destroyed by automatic defenses. 2 more were deflected by inner shields. But 3 made it through. They hit the reactor core. The explosion was beautiful and terrible. Fire bloomed inside the throne ship, spreading from deck to deck. The massive vessel began to break apart, pieces of metal flying into space. Lord Maven, Emperor of 47 conquered species, ruler of 10,000 worlds, died in fire and silence. Jiho watched the throne ship crumble. His spacecraft was damaged, spinning out of control. The escort ships were already firing at them. "Bora," he said calmly, "can we escape?" She checked the systems. "No. Engines are gone. We have maybe 2 minutes before they destroy us." Jiho nodded. He looked at his crew, at these brave people who had given everything for a chance to save their world. "It was an honor," he said. The Velic weapons found them. There was a flash of light. Then silence. On Earth, people watched the throne ship burn. They cheered, they cried, they held each other. The Emperor was dead. The war was not over. But for the first time, humans dared to believe they might actually win. General Torak received the news of Lord Maven's death on his command ship. He sat in silence for a long time, thinking about what this meant. The Empire would send more ships. They would want revenge. The war would continue. But something had changed. The humans had killed an emperor. They had done what 47 other species had failed to do. Torak realized with cold certainty that the Velic would not win this war. They had finally met a species as violent and stubborn as themselves, and they were losing. The Velic Empire had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. They had never lost a war. They had never retreated from a conquest. They had never experienced defeat. Until now. With Lord Maven dead, the Empire began to crack. His generals fought over succession. His admirals argued over strategy. The fleet in orbit above Earth stopped receiving supplies as the home worlds fell into chaos. General Torak watched his army starve. His soldiers grew weak. Their weapons ran out of energy. Their ships ran out of fuel. And the humans kept coming. Commander Tejo launched the final offensive 3 months after Maven's death. Human forces attacked every Velic position on Earth simultaneously. They came from underground tunnels, from hidden bases in the mountains, from ships that had been repaired with stolen technology. The sonic weapons that Dr. Yunji had invented were everywhere now. Velic soldiers fell screaming as their own senses destroyed them. Human troops walked through their lines, killing those who survived. Sergeant Minho led his squad into the Velic command center in what remained of Seoul. He was 25 years old now, a veteran of dozens of battles. Corporal Hana walked beside him, her rifle ready. "This is it," Minho said. "This is the last one." They kicked down the door and found General Torak alone in the room. The Velic commander sat in a chair, staring at a screen that showed his dying empire. His armor was cracked. His weapons lay on the floor at his feet. He looked up at the humans with tired eyes. "You have won," he said simply. Minho kept his weapon aimed at Torak's head. "Tell your soldiers to surrender. They will not listen to me anymore. I have lost their respect." Torak made a sound that might have been a laugh. "We came here to conquer another primitive species. We thought it would be easy. We were wrong. You killed millions of us. And you killed hundreds of thousands of us, perhaps more. I stopped counting months ago." Torak stood up slowly, keeping his hands visible. "I would like to request a meeting with your leaders to discuss terms." Hana's finger tightened on her trigger. "Terms? You want to negotiate after everything you did?" "I want to end this war before more of my soldiers die." Torak looked at her without fear. "I am not asking for mercy. I am asking for sense. What is the point of more killing?" Minho lowered his weapon slightly. "That is not my decision. Commander Taiho will speak with you." The meeting happened in the burned shell of Seoul City Hall. Commander Taiho sat across from General Torak. Captain Yuna stood behind Taiho, her eyes never leaving the alien. "You wish to discuss terms," Taiho said. "Speak." Torak folded his massive hands together. "My empire is broken. Lord Maven is dead. The homeworlds are fighting civil wars. I have no reinforcements coming. My fleet is damaged and low on supplies." He paused. "I am offering to withdraw all Velic forces from your planet and your solar system. And in return, safe passage. You allow my soldiers to leave without further attack. We return to our space and never trouble your world again." Yuna stepped forward. "You burned Tokyo, 20 million people. And you want us to just let you go? What I want does not matter. What matters is what is practical." Torak met her angry gaze without flinching. "You can continue fighting. You can kill every last Velic on this planet. But it will cost you lives. Your people are tired. Your cities are destroyed. Is revenge worth more dead humans?" Taiho was silent for a long moment. He thought about all the soldiers who had died under his command. He thought about Jiho and Bora, and the others who had sacrificed themselves to kill Lord Maven. He thought about the 20 million souls in Tokyo. Part of him wanted to kill Torak. Part of him wanted to hunt down every Velic soldier and make them suffer. But he had learned something in this war. Vengeance felt good, but it cost too much. "We accept your terms," he said finally. "Your forces will leave within 30 days. Any soldier who remains after that time will be killed. Torak nodded. Agreed. But there is something else I want. Taiho leaned forward. I want you to tell the galaxy what happened here. I want every species, every empire, every civilization to know that humans are not prey. I want them to see you, the mighty Velek, broken and retreating. I want them to be afraid. Torak was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded again. I will tell them. They will not believe me at first. They will think I exaggerate. But eventually, when other empires test your strength, they will learn the truth. Good. Taiho stood up. Now get off my planet. The Velek evacuation took 23 days. Their ships rose from the surface of Earth and flew into the darkness of space. Human soldiers watched them go with mixed feelings: relief, anger, exhaustion. The war was over. 50 years later, Admiral Minho stood at the memorial in Tokyo. He was 75 years old now, his hair white, his body worn by age and old wounds. But his mind was still sharp. The memorial was a vast field of black stone with 20 million names carved into its surface. It had taken decades to build. It would stand forever. A young alien approached him hesitantly. She was a Corvan, from a species that had been conquered by the Velek centuries ago. When the Empire fell, her people had regained their freedom. Admiral, she said politely, I am a diplomatic student from Corvan Prime. I have studied your species extensively. Minho turned to look at her. What do you wish to know? I must ask, how? How did you defeat the Velek? They conquered 47 species. They ruled thousands of worlds. How did one small planet resist them? Minho smiled. He looked at the names on the memorial, at the faces of friends he still remembered after half a century. Because we had already survived ourselves, he said. The Velek were powerful, but they had never learned the lesson that we wrote in our own blood over and over for 10,000 years. What lesson? Minho pointed at the memorial, at the black stone and the endless names. That nothing lasts forever. Empires fall, stars die. Even the strongest species can be broken. His voice grew softer. But humans, we are different. We have been broken 1,000 times. We have faced extinction again and again, and every time we rebuild, we adapt, we remember. He looked up at the sky, at the stars that humans now traveled freely. The Velek expected us to be like the others. They expected fear and surrender. Instead, they found something they had never encountered before. A species that had spent 10,000 years learning how to fight, how to suffer, how to die, and how to keep going anyway. The young Corvan was silent, absorbing his words. One more thing, Minho said. The Velek had superior technology, superior numbers, superior weapons. But they lacked something we have in abundance. What is that? Minho smiled, and in his smile was all the pain and triumph of the human experience. Stubbornness. Pure, stupid, beautiful stubbornness. We refuse to accept defeat even when defeat is logical. We fight impossible odds because we do not know how to quit. The Velek could not understand that. No one can really until they face us. He turned back to the memorial, touching one of the names with his old, scarred hand. They came for our world. They found our fury, and they learned the hardest lesson in the galaxy, which is, never invade Earth. The wind blew across the memorial. 20 million names stood silent under the sky, and somewhere among the stars, other empires whispered warnings to each other. Do not go to Earth. Do not challenge the humans. They cannot be conquered. They cannot be broken. They cannot be stopped. They had survived their own violence for 10,000 years. They would survive anything.